Yes, hello, folks. Welcome to the weekly Manchester United podcast. I'm your host, as always, Phil Brown. Joined with my regular co-host, James Rhodes, after what has been a really difficult week for United. Horrendous result performance yesterday. I know a lot of people will be listening to this that might get a bit tired of the negativity. I do too, trust me. It's not a place I particularly enjoy. Supporting this football club is a choice that I didn't make. I fell in love with this football club, and I don't know how to fall out of love with it. And all I can tell you is there's been a number of times over the last 12, 13 years since Ferguson left that have been particularly low moments where the result no longer concerned me. It was more of a concern for the football club. I really was no longer concerned about what the score was on the pitch because there was far greater things to be concerned about. And Sunday was one of those. And I went through a broad range of my emotions, James. I'll bring you in here in a second. From anger to resignation to sadness, almost as if I was watching a loved one self-destruct that I've been trying so hard, emotionally invested in their success, where there was just a resignation that what we're doing isn't working. And then there was some sympathy for the individual. I felt a little bit of sympathy for Ten Hag afterwards in the interview, because it's one thing criticizing as a football manager, but as a human being, I'm not mostly invested in anyone's failure. And but I have to say, I have no more hope left that this will ever improve.
Yeah, I understand the feeling for sure, and it's. I feel like I've gone through the 5 stages through the season already, because a couple weeks ago I was pretty angry about things. I was a bit angry after Liverpool. I'd gone through different things after 20, and at this point, unfortunately, I do feel as though like I've already accepted, sadly, 6 games into the season, that this season is a bust. That it's a waste.
I
Where
haven't
we are
changed
as
that,
a,
but go ahead, yeah.
I feel that way. You understand me? Like logically, it's not like I can't see ways out of it, but that's how I feel. That this season is kind of a bust, and that's pretty much. You know what I mean? Like, that's the feeling. I could see ways that things could change. I could see ways that they could save this. I could see ways that things could be salvaged, but it just feels that way for me as to where we are at this point in time. And yeah, in terms of the club itself and getting back where we are, it's we all know that we're only here after 12 years, not as a result of the last few months, but as a result of years and years and years and years and years, even while Sir Alex was still present at the club as the manager, of neglect and of the things that will take a long time to correct. Um, and I think, unfortunately, turning it around will take longer than we thought, or than people hoped for, or than we'd seen. I mean, you see Omar Barada, a story that he said, look, it's like what's Project 150 or whatever you'd want to call it in these names, winning the league 4 years from now. That may seem like a long time. That may seem unambitious, and I can understand that aspect of it too. But I also think that it's a little bit of an acceptance of the reality of how far behind United have been on so many things over the years. Now, none of that is really an excuse for what we see at games like Tottenham, games like 20, all of that. And that's part of trying to separate these things out, because there's issues that go on behind the scenes. There's issues that have been there for such a long time that result in this. But one of the things we want to bring up, and you and I spoke about this, and I feel very strongly about this, is when you're talking about things like, you have young players, or you're a club in transition, or it's going to take time and all of that. These are valid statements as to why you don't win the league. and why it will take a while to win the league, and why we likely won't win the Champions League for some time, and why we cannot compete with the likes of Real Madrid and Manchester City, who have now been well run from a football sense, pending 115 charges for 10 plus years, and why we can't compete in those arenas. They are absolutely and unequivocally bullshit when you use them as reasons why you cannot beat teams like FC 20 and Crystal Palace away. They are not justifications in that level. And so it's unfortunate because there's two really different issues going on at the same time that are both complex, and one will take a long time to fix, and one you can see on the day-to-day basis. You know, the club itself has to get it right for a long time in a row, year after year after year, to raise it to the level of being able to beat the likes of Manchester City. You look at teams like Arsenal, they struggled for a long, long time, and then they built up, and they still cannot get over the hump. And I still don't think they will get over the hump of Manchester City. I think they haven't spent enough money. I don't think that their manager is good enough either. But I think there's things. The reason that they haven't actually made it all the way there, because it is that hard to win. Liverpool went through 20 years plus, was it, without winning the league. They got it. They started to get things right, and it still took a lot to win one title over Manchester City during this period. There's reasons why, you can not win titles, but there are not justifiable reasons why Manchester United can put in the types of performances like we see against Tottenham and like we see against 20. These are not justifiable. There's no real underlying reason for that. There's a good enough team. There's a good enough squad. Not having a new stadium doesn't mean you cannot go and put the effort in, that you cannot run, that you cannot kick a ball properly. These are two separate problems, and separating those two things out, will allow one, I think, to observe each for their own standing. Because I think too often in the conversations they get collapsed on each other as to, yeah, they're both integral to each other, but depends what level you're talking about. Manchester United have not been a team that, even with everything going on, should be sitting 8th, 9th, 10th and failing to beat some of the lowest teams in Europe. It's not acceptable. And the performances and things that we see are just not acceptable, no matter what else has gone on for years and years and all of that.
For me, I'm trying to understand, if you're INEOS, what you're looking at that says this deserves more patience, time, and investment. Now, I agree that if Ten Hag was working for Woodward, he would have been sacked by now, because Woodward would react to the result and the pressure and do the one thing that will buy him more time. Bring in a new guy, get the new manager Burns, it'll work for a year or two, then we have the same entropy, the same arc every single time. Manager comes in, third year is a complete disaster. And what we saw against Spurs, we've seen before. Right? We've seen this numerous times before, where that football team yesterday would have lost against any opposition because they had already decided that they weren't going to go out to compete in that game. They conceded a goal after 2 minutes, exactly the same goal against 20. Now, if you had any intention of correcting mistakes and legitimately apologizing, I'm feeling embarrassed that one of your players said that 20 and Scary wanted the game more, then you would have responded differently. One of the things that stood out to me last season in the Champions League was when United lost to Bayern Munich, they played Copenhagen and Galata next, I think it was, at home. And the first 45 minutes was atrocious, right? I mean, there was no intent to really go out, we really want to win this game. Right? And this is also on the players, James. What concerns me, James, is if Ten Hag was to get sacked, a lot of those players he brought there, why aren't you fighting for him?
Yeah.
Why aren't you going out?
I mean, it's his team. Honest, it is his team now.
100%. So there's no excuse about injuries or anything like that. This is not there, and that's what I'm saying. What's changed for me for last season, this season, is that I can't explain it away. But anyway, INEOS will not react to the result. You
Correct.
shouldn't react to the results. You have to look much deeper. You have to look at the causal elements of the result. The result is bad enough, but you have to understand why that happened. And if I'm INEOS, I'm looking at players who went out there on Sunday with no intent to execute the instructions they were given, with any vitality or any intent, with any winning mentality. Where I don't care if you don't have a manager, James. I don't care if Ten Hag got sacked on Friday and someone came in Friday night. Those players are capable of doing better than that. Okay, they can. You don't have forget about tactics, forget about training sessions. If you don't have human beings that are willing to execute your instructions, none of that matters. And they didn't want to execute from the first minute.
Yeah.
Mickey Van de Ven walks through that defense after 2 minutes of the first half, and they score. They scored 2 minutes into the second half. Now they've just come out from a dressing room where they've been talked to by their manager. They should have been affronted, professionally embarrassed. I mean, that performance in the first half should be a professional embarrassment and affront to anyone who is a professional footballer. Because before you play for a manager, you play against the guy who you're up against, your duel, right? Whoever is, if I'm a right winger, left winger, center striker, my first is I want to beat this guy.
Yeah.
My professional respect for myself brings that competitiveness out. But that didn't happen. I mean, that goal that's conceded against 20, if that's against City, they foul you immediately in the halfway. United, they foul you immediately. Or that, but they just let him walk through. And looking at this and going, that would be the biggest thing that would concern me, is that forget it, your tactics you can amend, but if you have people going onto a field who don't believe in what you're telling them, you have a problem.
Yeah.
And this is an issue that any of us are going to have to address to create a structure that no longer allows this level of decline. It says we can fail, but we're going to fail by finishing fourth. We're not going to fail by being 4 points off relegation.
Yeah.
By scoring 5 goals all season, by not looking like winning a game of football, by looking like you'd lose against any opposition. There has to be a structure that doesn't allow that. So they have to have a comprehensive process that says, okay, this is why this is happening. But that type of performance has to produce not a reaction, a response. React is clumsy. Response, you think about it, you consume all the information, you look at all the relevant factors. We now have a football board in place to understand football. And if they choose to persevere with Ten Hag, which is fine, then they also have their fingerprints on any future failure that comes.
Yeah, they're culpable. Yeah.
That's great. I would love to see it. I don't care who the manager is, truthfully. I just want United to play well and be entertaining and have something that I can, enjoy. And if you're a Manchester United manager and you do that your team plays like that, I would be asking myself deep questions and going, I don't want to be in front of the cameras anymore explaining this. He's also let down by his players, James. And to finish on this point, I have no doubt that United were an impossible football club to manage for 2 years. A total basket case, stuff going on behind the scenes, Yes, we're going to renew De Gea's contract. Actually, we're not going to renew De Gea's contract. Ronaldo, now you got to kick him out. And Jadon Sancho, now we're going to have to suspend him. Yes, you have Mason Greenwood. No, you don't have Mason Greenwood. We're going to send Arnautovic. No, we're not going to send Arnautovic. I mean, just one chaos catastrophe after another. The CEO goes, the board goes, new people coming in, the club's up for sale. He's not allowed to sell. He's not allowed to buy. Loses his left back last January. I mean, a fucking impossible job for any human being to manage that football club. I mean, fucking impossible. But he's been contaminated by what happened last season. And a lot of the players won't feel that way. They are, what happened last season is now an issue for Ten Hag because he can't divorce himself from it with the players.
Correct.
And I think that's made his position very weak. And if you can't implement rules and standards that players don't like, you're just like a step parent coming into a relationship trying to bring rules and discipline. The kids fucking hate you. Sorry for my language, but I think this is one of the biggest things INEOS have to confront is, will he ever have the authority to lead again and the credibility to lead where players are going to do what they're asking them to do? And you brought in a bunch of his players, and if they're not willing to do it, then you have to confront this reality.
Well, and that is the concerning part when you look at what's happened here, because not only is it when you see things like someone running through the midfield, but when you watch running through Mazraoui and De Ligt. De Ligt is someone who's an aggressive player, known as a leader at multiple clubs that he's been at, including back at Ajax. And you have them looking at each other and going like this 2.5 minutes into the game. What is that? How does that happen? These are players that have been brought in specifically, that know him, not specifically for Ten Hag, because I won't say that that's the case, but that know him, that know what he is, that they weren't here last season, that they didn't have to deal with any of that have been at big, successful clubs, and they come in and they're already lost, and they're already out of knowing what to do. They're already confused. They're already chasing ghosts, and it's a problem. It is. It's unfortunately a problem, and and one of the things I don't really know, that I don't really get, that I can only assume in some respect, but that is somewhat not understandable to me, is I don't actually know if Ten Hag enforces any sort of standards or not on the players after these games. And I'm not talking about like the disciplinary rules like we've discussed, which I think are at a club level, right? Things like the showing up late, those kinds of things, all of that we spoke about where it comes to Jadon Sancho and these types of things that should be discussed by the club, right? But we've seen time and time again players who don't follow the plan, who will, they'll not press, or they'll not run, or they'll not chase, or they'll not do this, or they'll not do that. But it doesn't really seem like there's any pitch consequences. We've seen the same team, the same defense, the same lineup get trotted out time and time again, and they'll make the same errors, the same mistakes, the same issues, and then nothing happens. And players, there's the belief aspect of it, and there's also like, why is that tolerated? Why are some of these things tolerated? I think that it's a really weird sort of line to draw, but and it's hard from the outside looking in to see at it, but I see a lot of things that wouldn't be tolerated by other top managers. And sometimes I think that players only stay on the pitch because this is where I feel Ten Hag is reliant on an individual aspect of players too much, more than kind of like a systematic way, and you either follow with what I say to do, or I put somebody in who will follow it, and that's more important than the individual. And I think that's how most top managers would treat things, but it's hard to see how that happens at United. It doesn't.
That can only happen, James, if one, you have the alternative to do that, of a similar equal value of player that was willing to go in and follow your instruction. And I think, to be fair, he has done that sometimes. It's one of the reasons why Sancho was left out. And I think that he has, left players out, whenever they've not done certain things. But but the problem at United is, for the first 2 years, you had no ability to do that. So you couldn't go to the football club and say, we need to get rid of these players because they're not doing what I'm asking. Okay, well, that's a financial decision, not a football decision. Yeah. And financial decisions are overrule everything. So your power is being usurped. And you got to go back, and now these players that you just told to leave, you have to keep them. And you're dead at that point. Arsenal had to make this decision with Aubameyang and Lacazette and everything, going, no. Okay, because there's a price and a cost. And they're two different things. The price of getting ready is expensive, but the cost is much higher. You have to have complete alignment from every single department in that football club with the rules and the consequences of breaking these rules, and a minimal level of performance that results in you being booted out. And eventually, if you do that consistently enough, you will attract people to the football club that are winners, that you won't have to ask. I mean, I remember Gary Neville saying last week, there's a big point, that before you got Fergie's bollocking, you got Keane's, you got a bunch of players on the pitch that that backed you up.
Yeah.
And by the time you got to Ferguson, you already knew what was coming. Ten Hag don't have it.
Yeah.
You're not anyone willing to get. I mean, James, I've been saying this for a year. Take a look at when United concede a goal.
But that's what I'm saying, and
But that's on the players.
I know, but it concerns me too because it's like I know. But I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you.
So, as much as I want Ten Hag deserves criticism, sometimes it's oversimplistic to say, let's just get rid of the manager, because there's lots of authors in this failure who bear responsibility. I mean, I don't think Bruno Fernandes was a red card yesterday, but I think he let his manager down.
He was shit.
Because once you lift
even
your
before
leg
that and what he did,
you're taking a risk.
On that point, it's one of those ones where, like, we've talked about the refs a lot. I think it's understandable why he got a red, even if I think it was soft, because he puts his leg high on purpose. Don't make any qualms about it. He lifted his leg up at the player, and you give the ref an opportunity at that point, because it's not that dissimilar to the play that the Southampton player got a red card for against Garnacho. Yeah.
Did he look like a player that didn't want to be sent off? Because I've seen Bruno.
He knew what he was doing. That's what I'm saying. Like,
I've seen Bruno appeal refereeing decisions and get booked for just appealing them and being. We've seen his histrionics on the pitch. We've seen him as emotional. He looked like a player that was protesting out of a sense of duty than any sense of injustice.
Yeah,
and I think he wanted to be sent off. I just think he felt like I haven't been playing well. Madison's running the show, and I'm frustrated. It's okay. Players get frustrated. Players do stupid things. I understand. But he looked like a player to me that was happy to take the red card. The other part of the first goal that I forgot to mention, James, something that's totally unforgivable, was Diogo Dalot. Diogo Dalot has eyes on who was it scored the first goal for Spurs? I can't remember.
Brennan Johnson.
He's watching. Run from him. If look when Van de Ven gets that ball and Johnson makes the run. Dalot is 5 yards from him. You can see what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And he just chooses not to cur enough to get in front of Johnson. And Johnson taps in the back post, and Dalot's like, my bad. No, I don't want to hear that. It's a basic responsibility. People have traveled all over the world for this game, spent thousands to go to this football game. You have a professional responsibility and a moral obligation to these people to, at the very least, bring an intent to compete. It should be a privilege to wear this shirt, the Man United shirt. It should be a privilege to wear that shirt. And yet some of these players look like the last place they want to be is on the football pitch. I'm not defending Ten Hag, but I'm so sick and tired of seeing a Manchester United team completely surrender, accept defeat, and accept whatever. That could have been anything they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Kane and Son are in that team. Jesus, we're talking about another.
I mean, Werner misses 3 chances, easily one-on-one with Onana. Like,
I'm watching other football teams.
Yeah.
On the weekend, and the contrast between what I'm watching at United is astonishing. I'm like, it is absolutely unbelievable how lifeless that team is. I mean, it is unbelievable that they accepted defeat before they went on that. I mean, they did, James. They 100% did.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I'm saying INEOS have to look past the defeat, because there's other deeper issues in this football club, because this is the consistent arc, the consistent cycle that this football club ends up on. And this is where we find out about the quality of the team that INEOS have put together. Not identifying a problem. Any decade can find a problem, right? Hey, I need a new roof, but the genius is in fixing the problem.
Yep.
That's what INEOS need to do. How do you fix this problem? And I would be vehemently against a Graham Potter or a Gareth Southgate. United needs someone that walks into that dressing room that gets the respect of players. I mean, like Casemiro won 4 European Cup. You need someone that comes in. Van Nistelrooy might be a legitimate personally has the playing track record resume to get that
Yeah.
respect, and obviously it would be an easy
And I think
continuity. But yes,
I think Ollie did for a time command that respect when he came in, because of being a legend of the club. And I know there was things painted as that being a weakness, but it was also under a different time. And I really don't think that was particularly the issue. And then you had an unfortunate thing, I think, which he mentioned recently when he was interviewed, because when Ronaldo walked in the door, you had a player bigger than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in the dressing room. And things changed quite a bit at that point in time for him. But no, I would agree with you. And I just want to point out one more thing. This isn't a critique of in alignment with this. This wasn't a critique of this article. This is from Laurie Whitwell, and it says it was a breakdown after the game, and it says there was nothing particularly unusual in the dressing room afterwards, just a determination to reset, starting in the Europa League game at Porto on Thursday with Ten Hag telling his players there's always a new day. Fuck that. Again, part of my language too, but fuck that. That whole thing is wrong. That's not wrong as in incorrect. It's wrong in that is not what should be happening in the dressing room afterwards. It should not be business as usual. It should not be tomorrow is a new day. We're going to start over. Oh, we'll bounce back from this. But sorry, I'm not going to go on to expletive rant. Forget all that. Forget that. That is not how it should be. It should be unusual in the dressing room after you lose 3-0 to Tottenham at home. It should be unusual. That is not business as usual. That is a disaster, what they showed on the pitch, and nobody should be sitting there accepting that. But the problem is that I think that shows an acceptance in the dressing room and from Ten Hag that they're not good enough and that they've lost it. And I think that's a real problem. I think that is a real problem because once you've given up even fighting, then it's really over for all of them. It's really over when you can't even fight anymore.
What I would trying to understand is, what are you going to do differently that you didn't do after Liverpool?
Correct.
What is going to change in training and all the other things that influence a player's performance? So what is going to change that all of a sudden against Porto, this is the last time we see this? I mean, James, there's 1,000 stats being circulated out there. Each one is excruciating to read.
Yes.
Each one is you're looking at it and you're like, this is unacceptable. It's it is completely unsustainable. And INEOS have to have like I said, a sporting structure and standards that says this isn't possible under our two leagues. I accept the fact that they're brand new and there's still a lot of things that have to work. There's still a lot of these departments that have to be put together that function properly, that won't function properly for at least a year or two. And you're not going to catch Man City or, Arsenal in one couple of months. I mean, they changed the culture of United. They changed when Ferguson left, when Ed Woodward turned the football club from a, football first football club to a commercial machine that put football second. It's a the first principle is profit and everything's derivative of that. That's going to take time to change. I understand that. But when I look at what's happening now, I look at, there's no way, James, if players on that pitch can be that bad without it being intentional. I'm sorry. Like you take a look at any team in Ipswich against Villa. Right. Desire.
Performance.
Draw 2 weeks. I mean, I've watched a couple of Ipswich games this season and they've been better than United pretty much every week.
Yeah, I mean, they lost to Liverpool and City as a promoted team in their openers, and since then they fought every single game to be in it. Every single game.
And Spurs will not have an easier game all season because no one will surrender like that. There will not be another team in all of the 4 professional divisions in England that will surrender like that. That is a complete professional capitulation. That is going out into a professional arena with no intention of winning that particular event, and that is cheating the fans more than anyone else. I don't care how you feel about the manager. I don't care about how you feel about the club. I don't care about how you feel about the tea lady. I care about the only people that aren't being paid to be at that game, who are paying to be at that game. You have more, and if you don't want to do it, what you should do is you should walk through that dressing room, find every player enough money that refunds the fans. Okay, because if you aren't willing to give, then we'll get the Ten Hag. because I need you to be able to look me in the eye after a game and say, you give me 100%. If you can't do that, the problem is with you first. Okay? Because I don't care if you're the best coach in the world. And being a coach and a manager are different things. And this is where, some, confusion. Ten Hag might be a good coach, manager, I don't know. But whatever happens, James, your first responsibility as a professional athlete and employee, okay, is to give your best. That's not possible every day. But if you feel with that, you can't blame him, her, this guy, that guy, my boss. You are the problem first. Take responsibility first. I want to see players come out first and take responsibility and say, responsibility lies with me first. Ten Hag's not Ten Hag's fault. I'm not a professional footballer. It's because I wasn't good enough, because I didn't have the right mentality, the skills, the right. If you feel at your job, it's your fault.
Yeah.
100%. Now, yes, there's external factors not there that can contribute to that. But if you do everything right, you will succeed somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. And the players have to take responsibility too. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, they do, and I think where again, the problem becomes when in keeping with both alignments in the conversation, and I'm not saying you're saying this, but people get held up into one or the other. I've seen a lot of games where I feel United players have put their best foot forward, and it's still been bad, and we've still lost, right? And we've still lost, and we've still been out coached or out tacticked and all of that. And we've seen games where we've been out coached and out tactic, and the players didn't put their best foot forward and did not put the effort and application in, which I think is what we saw against Tottenham as well. And these are all, these are essentially both major problems that the club have to deal with. And what you said that, in sorting this out, coming into moving forward, if they're going to bring somebody into the club, as a manager to fix some of these things. And I do think you do have someone who can. I think these things are fixable. And I do think that ultimately, as bad as it is in any job, the manager and the boss loses their job if the employees continue to underperform underneath them. In one respect or another, because it's just sort of in the end, it tends to be their job. But I agree with what you said when you're talking about the people or the person that should be brought in. And I wanted to get back to it because, as well, I know a lot of people who want to listen to the podcast want to ask about this, and it's a major topic and things. And obviously, it's something I have been looking into. And one of the things I do want to say is that a lot of the names that are floating around at the moment really don't, as I understand it, have a lot of present bearing. Graham Potter will not be the next United manager right now. He's not being considered for that role. He'll be on Monday Night Football, I think, tonight, breaking down the United game, and that's probably as close as he's going to get to Manchester
There's
United.
Nothing to break down. There's
yeah. Oh no, but
plenty of 11 dead bodies.
Yeah, so he will not likely be. I don't think Gareth Southgate will be either. I really don't in that respect. There's other names, people like Eddie Howe, not really under consideration. Dan Ashworth and Eddie Howe were not particularly best of friends at Newcastle. Dan Ashworth did not appoint him at Newcastle, so I don't think that that's one that's going to be considered. I would honestly say that we kind of suspected this with the Van Nistelrooy thing, and one could say it was entirely up to Ten Hag bringing Van Nistelrooy in. Yeah, maybe. I don't know about that one exactly. It just so happens he's a legend of the club who's a head coach, coming from a head coaching job into an assistant coaching job. Very good friends with Sir Alex and other people around the club, and has strong ties to them. Has been very front and center to a lot of visual things. I think the most likely outcome, quite frankly, if Ten Hag does lose his job during the season, is that Van Nistelrooy will see it out to the end of the season, and they will get somebody really top in, because they cannot afford to do a quick Band-Aid type of fix with a permanent appointment. And I think that, one of the things with that, Thomas Tuchel, what happened in summer is that they did not have the people in place to fully carry this out properly. Jim Ratcliffe shouldn't be appointing our manager. right? He should not be. Obviously, he's as an owner, he's the one who's going to have to sign the thing and approve the appointments and all that. That's not what I mean. But Jim Ratcliffe is not qualified to appoint our manager, right? To
And to
pick
be
who
fair,
should
he
be
has
the
said that.
manager. Yeah, and he said that. I'm not blaming him, but that was the situation he found himself in, right, this summer with everything that happened, that they didn't have Dan Ashworth in, that Omar Barada wasn't starting until July, and he was left in that position. So he's meeting managers. They offered the job to Thomas Tuchel, and he turned it down because he doesn't really want the position that they have on offer. And so, that's really, to me, not an option that is showing up. So I believe strongly that the more likely scenario, and this will be discussed during the international break, if the results of the next couple games go badly, the chances of him losing his job are definitely quite high during the next international break if they go poorly. And I don't see why they wouldn't, because I don't see what's going to change. But then I do believe that Dan Ashworth will want to carry out a proper process and hire the right person. And that person really may not be available this season. If you want someone tops, Xabi Alonso, I'm just throwing names out, right? Carlo Ancelotti, Inzaghi, you're not getting them now. They're not leaving their jobs now. They're just not. It's not a money question. They're just not, because those types of managers, they don't leave their jobs mid-season when they're at good jobs already. And so you're looking to the end of the season. You might also be looking at people who you still want to see how they do through the Premier League season. People like Areola at Bournemouth, who's been very impressive last year, and see how he does through this year to see if he's actually somebody. And then you have to determine, does he have a personality to actually come in and put some, controls into here? Or do we feel that we'll have enough influence by the end of the season with things in place that we don't need someone with extreme pedigree? So there's a lot of consideration there. It's frustrating, but I don't think it would be wrong, unfortunately, to see the season as a little bit transitionary to get the right person into place, because I don't want to see them do a Band-Aid and just pick someone because they're available that we end up having the same discussion with later because they're not the right person. They're just there, The only person I know who's like totally available that has the pedigree is Zinedine Zidane, and I don't think that's really one that has a possibility of happening.
I'm gonna be honest, right? Because there's something that I do take when I hear this stuff about coaching. I think this is bullshit, mate. I'll be honest. First of all, coaching is relevant at under 10 level, under 12 level, under 14 level, and even then, I think the influence of coaches is massively oversold. A lot of development happens away from coaches. Coaches can teach you good habits. They can teach you, certain things about, how to develop technique, but it's all about what you do. Yeah. If you take a bunch of people and you give them instruction, if they don't do it with a desire to improve and overcome all the mental, impediments and all the other, you can't coach. I can take a kid and put them in a room for 5 years with the best math tutor in the world. And they're going to come out 5 years later being much more astute and intelligent and educated on math. I can lock a kid in the room for 5 years with the best football coach in the world, and they'll come out exactly the same, because you don't learn football very much. Right? It's about what you do.
Yeah.
And when you get to professional level, and Mourinho said this, you're not coaching them to be better players. I mean, you can't. That's not that part is gone. Now it's about what you do. It's about how determined are you to reach the highest level. And if this doesn't happen here, go somewhere else. If there's reasons why it can't happen here because of structural reasons, facility reasons, or environmental, because these are always the reasons why players fail. I mean, Roy Keane got relegated with Forest. Brian Clough was, not, cognitively in his prime. Wasn't because he was badly coached. That to me, this is at this point you take responsibility for your own development. Ronaldo at 17 was staying behind, doing extra training sessions, dedicating himself every day, living right, sleeping right, eating right. It wouldn't have mattered if I was coaching Ronaldo. He would still be the best player in the world because he wanted to be. So this coaching stuff, to be coaching at the highest level in professional football, to think this guy doesn't know how to coach is fucking insane. I mean, it's so ignorant of what you have to do to get to these levels. That guy is tactically astute, understands a million things in football we don't. He understands session, but it all depends on the vigor of the people that you're asking to execute your instructions. And if they don't want to do it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you know. These things are all derivative of the competitiveness in an athlete to win. And there's an old saying, generals, bad instructions are better. A bad plan is better if it's executed with vitality than a good plan that's executed without it.
Yeah.
It's about what you bring to the field. Are you willing to compete? Do you want to win this game? Forget about the tactics, forget about the manager. And if you don't have that, you have nothing. So these people know how to coach. Do they know how to manage? Is a different question.
Correct.
Because at this level, it's really all. I mean, Ferguson was not tactically astute, and for the majority of his time at United, did not spend that on the training grounds, and he knew that. But they respected his judgment. They respected his leadership. They trusted him, and that's what management is about.
Yeah.
How do you manage people? Not coaching. Not coaching. That's irrelevant. That all these people at this level know how to coach. Sit Ten Hag on Monday Night Football and he'd blow your mind.
Yeah.
You know, Rooney said Van Gaal was the best coach he ever worked for.
Yep.
But management is different.
Yep.
And so and
I think that just on that, right? And I think just
these people, they know how to psychologically motivate you to willing to die. It wasn't Mourinho called this team the dogs of war for Inter Milan. That's what you have to get on a pitch. You have to get players that are willing to die for you, for the team, for 3 points. As Warnock said, you have to, that's what you need. If you can't get that, you don't match the competitive aggression of your opponent, forget it. It's over.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of times what happens is coaches who don't have the other aspect, which is a little bit more of a human aspect, they try to make up for it tactically. And I think that's where things go awry. And I think that's a lot of what's happened with Ten Hag is it's almost like you can really start overthinking things heavily when the other aspect of it is becoming difficult and hard to do, right? And so then it can come across like one doesn't know how to coach, doesn't know how to do things, all of that. And it's really probably not the case, in being fair.
He knows how
like
to coach.
You said,
he knows how to manage
but managing people is different. And really at the end of the day, I think it is more important knowing how to manage people on the training ground. When you're picking teams, when you're doing all of that, that's management more than it is coaching. It's knowing what you're going to get out of people.
100%.
And that's where I think you need someone who really gets that. Like that aspect cannot be understated, because I would agree for the most part. The most successful
doesn't know how to coach. He's worked with the best Real Madrid, the best. I mean, this is insane. This is so stupid. Of course they know how to coach.
The most successful coaches ever, I think you would more lean towards. You'd look at them as people who've motivated well in all.
Did Ancelotti fail at Everton because he didn't know how to coach?
Exactly. It's a great example.
It's the environment. It's what you can't give. If you don't have the players, you don't have the willingness to execute. Coaching doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Anyone that's coached knows this. If you see players on the pitch that don't want to do what you ask them to do, it doesn't matter what you anyway. Sorry, man. Yeah.
No, it's good. I think that for sure, then, in that consideration, whatever happens, if Ten Hag doesn't turn it around and they make a replacement, they have to get it right as somebody who can manage. Even if they want a head coach, they're still managing a lot. And really the distinction between a head coach and a manager, when you're talking about the modern things, because I've brought it up, it's not about the players and how you deal with the players. That's things like recruitment. You don't want the head coach spending all day on recruitment and the other aspects of the club that should be taken care of. That's the difference, right? And I think that, but they are 100% still a manager of people. They're, no matter what, you call them a head coach, whatever, they're 100% still a manager of people. They may not be the manager of the club anymore. That's what they're not managing, but they are a manager of people. They're a manager of the first team that they're working with and the players that are in there and the assistant coaches and all of that. That's what they are a manager of. And that's what they have to get right. And so if there is a change, they cannot mess that aspect of it up because they will be judged on that. They cannot get somebody who is really smart but has no idea how to deal with people. They cannot do that. That is not going to work. I'm not saying they will. I'm not saying that that's true. I don't know some of these people. But they do need to get that part of it right.
You know what I think, James? a significant part of the solution to this problem, if it's going to be fixed with Ten Hag being there, isn't the Ten Hag solution.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this is going to require someone like Brailsford, or the people that run the club, to walk into the dressing room and say, you say to the players, you're not playing for this manager, you're playing for this club.
Yeah.
And if he goes, you will go too. So you're not playing to get him sacked, you're playing for your own futures.
Yeah.
So what we demand of you as an employer, none of this is acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And there's very clear consequences. I don't care if you're here 6 months, we'll put you out. Okay.
Yeah.
This is the consequences you would face at Real Madrid. This is the and that's how you create a winning environment, so that these players know I'm not. We can get him sacked, but we're playing for the guy above him.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not going anywhere.
Yep.
So either we put in performances that are not going to get us kicked out, because they can do better than that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's people. I'm sorry, like, you're on a football pitch for 90 minutes a week. We're not asking much here as United fans. We're forgiven for a lot of things. We can forgive, losing games. We can forgive not being good enough. Well, I can't forgive you walking out on that pitch for 90 minutes and whatever's affecting you, externally, it prevents you from giving 100% for 90 minutes. That's all.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Because you want to make sure I come off that pitch going, I'm not a part of this. I'm giving everything. And I cannot say with any degree of confidence that that's what's happening. I mean, Casemiro was supposedly the fault against Liverpool, and Aguarte's getting, but it's very hard to play in a football team that really is giving you a quarter of an effort, because the passes aren't on, the movement's not on. It's easy to get overwhelmed because you're playing on your own. And I said this in that Liverpool game with Casemiro, was like, the problem, the players are so far apart that it's really, they're high risk. You have to constantly do high risk passes, but there's nothing else on.
Yeah.
There's no
we keep
easy
changing players and the same problem happens.
Yeah,
so
but,
it's like,
this is what I'm saying, James. This is at some point the players have to take responsibility too, because what you were saying, well, if punish the players, rotate. Okay, when the players come in, they don't do shit to keep a shirt. Well, so this is what happens when you have mediocrity. You rotate, the player comes in, does exactly the same as a player. So now what?
Yeah.
What else can you do as a manager? I mean, the manager's methods and everything else that he's trying to impose are only as strong as the willingness of the players who are willing to carry them out. And they don't want to do it. Then United faced with a choice. Do we get another manager, or do we create an environment where that is unacceptable? Because that is unacceptable to the football clubs. No, I agree.
Yeah.
But so this is where they have to look beyond the result and say,
correct.
No, I understand. This may be the worst manager in world football. Okay.
Yeah.
But
correct.
that does not explain what you did this weekend.
I agree with
that. I would sit there and go, you explain one by one to those fans why you did that. Ten Hag has to go do it. You do it.
Yeah.
Go get that one on TV and explain why wouldn't chase back. Go get all those United players that watched that Mickey van de Ven walk through them. Say, fuck the manager, forget them in a minute. Why didn't you do your job? Your basic responsibility. Why didn't you tackle him? Why didn't you fire him?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Go explain that to the fans. Look what happens at Lyon. Grab them players, go make them explain to the fans why they're doing that. Look what happens at Roma. Look what happens at Napoli. They have to go face their fans and say, this is why this happened. We'll get to the manager later. He explains. Now you do it.
Yep.
Sorry. I mean, you went and lost 7-0 at Liverpool. You lost 5-0 at Liverpool at home. You lost 3-0. We don't have a rivalry anymore, James. We're the nail. Everyone else is the hammer. We lose to fucking everybody. We're supposed to be rivals with. They batter us.
Yep.
I mean, how much longer? Where's their professional pride?
Yep.
Why? I mean, United, when I was supporting United in the 80s, and Robson White said, they weren't great, but you knew you were getting committed footballers on that pitch. You knew why they were losing, because they weren't as good as the opposition, but they gave you 100%. And I respect that.
Yep.
But I don't respect these petulant surrenders, because that's what happened.
Yeah. I would agree. I mean, like I said, they're parallel issues. They are parallel issues, not exclusive issues. These are parallel issues. That is absolutely a problem because that can't be acceptable under any manager. It's like you said, um, if you play your best and you don't win,
No problem.
then you're off the hook. To me, um,
You support a football
because
club,
yeah,
you recognize your team's going to lose. That's part of
yeah.
life.
Yeah, exactly. And so it is that for sure. And INEOS as the owners have to come and implement that standard because that has not been there. And that standard has fallen away by the wayside for a long, long time. And I think it was held up by Sir Alex because he'd been there for so long. But there was nothing backing him up. And the minute he was gone, there was nobody keeping that alive at the club itself.
Let me tell you something. When United beat Blackburn 7-1, one of the reasons why Ferguson signed Phil Jones was because he was a 19-year-old who put himself about the entire 90 minutes, fought to the death for that Blackburn team in a 7-1 defeat. Spoke everything about a 19-year-old's character. Grown professionals, experienced professionals, they couldn't bring themselves to do it, but a 19-year-old kid. When, like I said, when Forest got relegated, Ferguson said it was Roy Keane against the rest. Fought to the very last. Give everything. That's intrinsic in you. That's about you. That's about what you bring. What do you bring? It's not my boss's fault that I'm not a multimillionaire running a company. It's what I bring every day. And if you bring the right attitude every day and you're at the wrong employer, you'll still find a way to be successful because you'll eventually end up with the right one. But like Mourinho was saying, how many players leave United and have spectacular careers?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, how many? I mean, the only players that are doing that are developing are the younger players, like Angel Gomez or something.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at most of the experienced players that move on from United. I mean, it's not like they're proven United are the 100% the problem.
Yeah.
They're proven that they're also part of the problem. That they have at a point in their careers where they're just not interested in competing. Now, I'm not blaming them entirely because I think that you have an issue when players' ambition that strips the club, they lose motivation, 100%.
Correct. Which happens to many.
That's an issue with United. You don't bring players like Ronaldo in unless you're planning on winning the league because he's going to be a nuisance about the place once he finds you out that you're all bullshit. Right? You can't do that. That's obvious, right?
Now that didn't work. That didn't last very long, and then it was a real problem for everybody.
You seem like Casemiro. You're bringing a 4-time European Cup winner, and you're saying, "Right, get up for this game today so we can get in the Europa Conference." Like, what? I mean, I'm sorry. Like, I mean, that is not what you bring in these players if you want to win the biggest trophies. Otherwise, ask any average football club what happens when they have a player whose ambition it strips them. They leave.
Yeah, every time.
So, there's definitely issues that United have to fix to keep players focused, motivated, and committed to the collective goal. So they sacrifice individual goals. But James, you said this a million times, you tell everything about a football team or a human being by how the commitment they do, the things they don't want to do, the ugly things to accomplish the goal. How you defend will tell you everything about a team's unity, commitment to the goal. And when you don't defend with any intensity, that tells you that the players don't really care. They'll attack with vigor because that's an individual goal. I'll score a worthy, but I don't really. But defending, I'm not doing that. And that's unforgivable.
Yeah. So what happens now? We have 2 games until the international break. As I said before, as I understand it, if they go poorly and we see what we continue to see, there's a very strong chance that there will be a change during the international break. It is certainly going to be something up for discussion. What do you think happens? I mean, I don't see any reason things are going to improve by Thursday. Like I said, that's why I read that lineup from Laurie's article. If the dressing room is business as usual, if the management is business as usual, we'll bounce back. I don't see why it's going to change. I think we can fluke a result, but I don't see that there's going to be much difference.
Like I said, if I'm INEOS, I'm calling every player in and saying, if you don't want to play here, give me a transfer request right now. If you want to play here, you'll never fucking do that again.
Yeah.
because the next time you answer this question, it'll not be in my office, it'll be on the field. Simple as that. Okay, so you decide if you want to play here. If you want to play here, you play here 100%. I don't care if you like the manager. I don't care if you disagree with the tactics. I don't care if you're being asked to do something you don't want to do. You're not a Chinese miner down a fucking well, down a mine, 12 hours a day, putting your life in danger to feed your family. You're a multi-million-pound footballer with Lamborghinis, mansions, more chicks on the fucking side. Put a performance in. Okay, that's all you're being asked to do. And if that's too much for you, this is the wrong football club. This is a standard that can't be compromised. So to me, there has to be any INEOS intervention with the football club that says this football club will not tolerate that level of performance. And if you can't play better than that, you're at the wrong football club. You're clearly not good enough. So this is a question that you answer. If you want to be here, then this will never happen again. If you don't, and you do this again, we'll make the decision for you.
Yep.
Then we can deal with Ten Hag. And I'm okay with it sacking him. Trust me, I've lost complete confidence because I think he's completely contaminated by what happened before. He might not be good enough anyway. I can't listen to any more excuses anymore. He looks like a guy that doesn't believe that he can turn this around. But let's not pretend that all these problems leave if Ten Hag gets sacked. Okay, because this has been a recursive problem over and over again. Same trajectory, same entropy, same cycle, same everything. And I'm sick of it.
Yeah. Well, they need to use it in either way as a way to change that moving forward, because now it's when it's all kind of happening again under their ownership, as they've come in with all these new people into place to fix it, and to actually change it moving forward, because I really don't think that they could do so with the limited time last year, all the compounding circumstances, they're getting in place, they get in with summer. Well, now we see that things have really hit the skids and kind of gone to shit, so to speak. And so, yeah, it is more than the manager that they have to step down and figure out, all right, how do we actually change this so that these lows are not possible anymore? Because quite honestly, when we get to the point where we need to be, we should be sacking managers because we're getting third and fourth and not first and second, rather than sacking managers because we're getting 10th and 9th and 11th instead of 5th and 6th. That's the level that it should be, where we say, all right, it's just not good enough to take us over the edge. We want somebody else in there, but the minimum standard is extremely high. And so that has to be pushed very strongly on both sides of the equation to this.
Well, James, they want paid as top professionals. Okay. Yeah. Certainly when they're in negotiations for contracts with their agents, they're not talking about players that say, just pay me like someone that capitulates half the time.
Yep.
No. Yep. And you know what? When players play well and score goals after the game, they never just say, oh, it's 100% down to Ten Hag. Failure, right. 100% down to him. My success is 100% down to me. Failures, his success is mine. No. And like I said, James, I'm okay with, if you want to make a change of manager, that's fine. I'm at a point where I can't find a reason to persevere with this, and it's really painful. Like, instead of looking forward to games, I'm dreading them, and it's very painful to watch something you love in this type of state. Yep. But I'm also, James, like I said, I think that this is a moment that INEOS have to recognize that we always end up here. And what never prevents us from happening again is a new manager. There's something deeply intrinsic in a football club that is systemic, that puts United back in this position, no matter who they sign. Yep. It ends up here. And this is something where, that is a broader issue than the manager for me, because, Mourinho was a disciplinarian. Van Gaal was too. Solskjaer was the nice guy. They wanted that, and then it was because he was too nice, and then Ranić was just the nasty, the angry German, and that is always with the. So, when you're asking people to diagnose a problem that they're part of, you're never going to get the right answer. You're just going to get nonsense. This is why INEOS can still properly evaluate this problem without implicating themselves and saying, okay, we can understand why this is happening, because this is going to be one of the only times you're going to get an honest appraisal of failure. Yep. Because the next one, whoever they appoint after Ten Hag, recognizing that guy failed is recognizing your own failure, and that's hard to do for people.
Yep.
So, this is for me, this has to be comprehensive process, and this has to the consequences have to be far-reaching beyond the manager if you want to sack him, because Erik Ten Hag didn't get himself sacked. And I don't care, because James, if Van Nistelrooy took over tomorrow, I could see United beating Villa and beating Porto. Now, that's not down to a tactical revolution. That's down to players now coming out and executing with intensity and desire to win. So, but who the successor is, to me, is irrelevant until those things are fixed. It's just someone else that's going to take responsibility for other people's failures. I remember Ferguson saying this about Leeds: they're cheating their manager.
Yeah. Yep.
Whenever Leeds would get up for certain games, I mean, United don't even get up for certain games anymore. And if that, you're asking me to believe one or two things: that's your level, in which case you'd be massively overrated and massively overpaid, or in another case is that you're not professionally committed. I mean, if you're not professionally committed, what are you doing here?
Yeah,
forget the manager at that point.
Yeah.
So I know it's one of two things. They have to answer that. It has nothing to do with, tactics can lose you a game narrowly, right? But they can't lose 50-50s, right? They can't. The tactics aren't the reason why someone passes a ball 5 yards to a player and doesn't reach his feet. He goes out for a throw-in. There's nothing to do with tactics.
Mm-hmm.
That has to do with basic competence.
Yep.
Sure, you can they doubled up on us in midfield, they beat us. Okay, fine. But when you can't pass the ball 5 yards to a player who's standing right in front of you, no matter what tactics you go with, that's on you.
Yeah, I hear you.
And in his slight defense, if his system is constantly producing chances that you're missing, that's on you. Because that's why you're here at this football club, is because you can take these chances, and that's why you're not at Bournemouth or somewhere else. And if you can't, you shouldn't be here. Now, accept Ten Hag send him, but we can't just say it's all him. But
agreed.
I mean, it's just not an easy answer, mate. And I would be okay with him going, but this has to be much more than a superficial solution and saying no, this will never happen again.
For sure.
So, quick prediction for Porto, and we'll go to Porto right now.
Yeah, I can't see us getting much out of this one away because, like I said, I don't see why anything's going to change between yesterday and Thursday night away in Portugal. They haven't been particularly great, Porto as a team, but yeah, I mean, you could see a bounce back. I think it'll be a scrappy draw. That's what I would say. That's what I would see out of it. We scrape a draw with a messy performance. Yeah.
Because if they didn't bounce back, after Liverpool, when the first 35 minutes against Southampton was terrible, they didn't bounce back after 20, and they can. Why would this game all of a sudden matter? Mm-hmm. Right? Yep. And if they did, it would be again another wait a minute. So now you're putting everything against Porto, but you keep. Where was this? So wait, now we're tactically okay, but we weren't tactically okay against Spurs. This is all about individuals. And yeah, again, the environment that United are responsible for. Anyway, mate, I probably listening to this expecting a boot into Ten Hag, and I didn't want to spend an hour doing that, but transition from big managers is tough. Busby resigned in '69, and by '74, United were relegated. So it's tough, but this is unacceptable. All right, matey, we'll leave it there. I appreciate everyone listening. I hope it wasn't too negative. We're suffering with you. I'd like to be doing these on a positive note. I miss that, and I hope everyone else is doing well. Thanks as always, man. Take it easy.
Yes, you too. See you later.
All right,
Thank you, everyone.
see you, man. Bye.